Over the last few episodes, we've been talking with entrepreneurs who made that leap from employee to owning their own business. And we talked about the successes, some of the struggles. But today's conversation with Jasen Rice, CEO of Lotpop, was completely different, because what he talked about was starting a business with purpose versus starting it from ego. And he talks about his journey where he said, if I started the business when I first wanted to, it was out of ego and it probably would have failed, versus really understanding the purpose behind why I started my business. And that's the guiding light over these last 8 or 9 years of running his business. And he references that voice inside of his head, whatever you want to call it, that guides him, reminds him, puts him in the right place at the right time. It was a fascinating conversation. And he really shares just such a touching story at the very end that reminds him of his purpose and a purpose-driven business. So without further ado, let's dive into today's episode of You're in Charge: Conversations That Spark Change with Jasen Rice, CEO of Lotpop, on purpose-driven businesses. All right, so Jasen, let's just dive in. One of the things that I've, admired about you and watched you as you've grown your company is how, I don't want to say calm you seem all the time about doing it, because I'm sure there's a lot of stress involved. But, we were just at a conference and we were talking about your expanding, you're getting new space, you're adding on people. If someone's sitting in the position where they're growing their team, growing their business, what type of data or thought process goes into when you need to expand, when you need to add to your teams?
Well, some of it depends. I mean, obviously, when I first started out, I was afraid to hire somebody. I remember actually Dale Pollock at the time, I kind of treat him as a little mentor back then. And I'd call him up and I said, man, I just don't know what to do. I feel like I need to hire somebody to get more business, but I feel like I need more business revenue to hire that person. And he just told me, go ahead and hire. And, that gave me some faith to, do it. And I knew it, again, there's that kind of nudge, or you internally, nowadays, we've got a staff, I think of 20, 21 now. And, half of them are in the office here. And matter of fact, just had a conversation yesterday with one of them, and they're like, we need another data person. So it's a lot of feedback on the team too, because, I think I want to try to make sure that they have, just like myself, if we get into the story of how I got here, my life work balance was a really important part of it. So if my employees are coming here stressing out and just not enjoying work because there's just too much going on and too much to do, that's not very healthy for them. So by hiring another person to get that workload off, again, it's just kind of investing into your people, because it lightens their load. And now they get back into that work-life kind of balance. So, a lot of it has to do with focusing on that. I did this to have a work-life balance, not to create a company to grow it to what it is. I did it to be able to get off the road and be more home from my kids, my wife, church, things like that I needed time to do. And I couldn't do that. So I can't do that myself and then expect my employees to have a crazy, work-life balance also. So that's kind of how I judge it.
But see, what I love about that, and there's a lot in there, and we're going to break down a few of those things. One is that point that you are holding yourself accountable to what your employees do, meaning that if it's okay for you to leave at a certain hour or have work-life balance, then we have to build a structure where our employees can have that as well. And, I try to do that with my company as well. I always say, if it's okay for me to work at home, this was pre-COVID, work at home or go, take my child somewhere, well, then every employee should have that benefit or freedom to be able to do it. I just think that helps. Let's go back to that, because I think I don't want it to be glossed over. It's exactly where you started. When you're a solo entrepreneur, you have that 2 or 3 core people there. And it is a fear. of the balance sheet versus the future. I don't have enough money. I thought you said it beautifully. I need to hire somebody to generate revenue, but I don't have enough revenue to generate, to hire that person.
Yeah.
So is it that you just have to take that leap of faith? Did you just map it out and say, well, I'm going to go find a salesperson or someone who's going to generate revenue and then build out we can do this for 3 months, but by that time they better be generating? How can you walk me through how that initial couple hires happened?
Well, on my end, I was doing data entry manually. I was looking at dealerships photos and descriptions manually, doing that till 2 o'clock at night, and then getting up in the morning, doing my meetings, doing my data entry. And so mostly, I wasn't trying to get them to do my job as much as it, like I said, when I first hired my first person to do meetings with dealers, replicate what I was doing, that was a little bit more of a roll of the dice to see if it works, if dealers are buying into me or my service. And that goes into a lawn industry or anything else. You got a lawn person that does it meticulous, great job, and then they hire somebody and they do it sloppy. So it wasn't, I was trying to replace me. It was them trying to, I knew I couldn't add more clients or accounts if I didn't let this work go, because I had to spend hours of the data entry and this stuff. So I knew I didn't have a choice. Essentially, if I was going to get any further, I had somebody to get this workload off of me so I could host another 1 or 2 calls with dealers instead of doing 2 hours of data, which again, I'm going to make more money with those calls than I would what it cost me an hour for an employee. If it's $15 an hour to hire somebody versus I'm going to get this much from a dealer, it balanced it. And I knew I could do it if I just let go and did it, and I had no problem not micromanaging. I have no problem delegating, so it was just a matter. The other hard part, I think a lot of people have with it, because I talk to dealers and other companies or entrepreneurs, and they say, the challenge is it's not, well, even my IT guys, I got 2 developers and I want to hire another one. And they're like, well, by the time we hire them. So a lot of the fear is, man, I can hire somebody, but I'm going to have to spend even more hours training them. And it's not really it's not going to do what I needed to do by freeing up my time when I've got to train somebody. It's going to take me twice as long to train them. So that's the other fear, is getting over, okay, yeah, they'll free up 2 hours of my time per day or whatever it is. But it's going to take me 5 hours a day to train them, and it's going to slow me down even more. But you just have to make those sacrifices. It comes down.
I think from what you're saying, and another connection that I have with you is this idea of creating processes, right? So as you said, I'm going to duplicate someone who can go out and have these meetings, and that frees me up. And it is building that structure that you can plug someone else in. Yes, people, want to talk to the owner of the company. And yes, that happens, but you're never going to scale if everything relies on you to do everything. And then on the flip side, I think it's very hard. And this is for entrepreneurs, people running things that you're, early on, you don't have enough data to know when you should start looking to hire. For our company, now we've been doing this over 10 years, 12 years, almost 15, depending where you want to plug the start date. But that was one of the hardest things for us, is when do you have to hire? And we ended up figuring out reverse engineering from what's the workload for each individual that we think that's either their max, or we a lot of times now focus them at about 80% of their workload. So that we have flexibility. If all of a sudden an upsurge of sales comes in, no one's getting overwhelmed. But we also knew that when we got to a certain bandwidth and we manage that, then we have to start thinking to exactly what you said. I have to hire somebody. Well, how long does it take me to actually find a good candidate? Then how long is it going to take me to train that candidate? And then you reverse engineer, where now you have to think further down, because to your point is, you can't wait till I need it now, because then you're behind the 8 ball. But I don't think you get there till you have enough data to know what your team can really handle. Would you agree?
Yeah. And, once you get the ball rolling, I mean, if you got a product that, that is selling and continue to sell and evolve, and that path should be there down the road, the first fear is getting over hiring that first person and taking that leap of faith that, okay, the business will be there to cover this. But once you get it, it's like a snowball eventually. And as I got my team and more people together. To your point, we created processes. We knew, okay, it takes about 3 minutes to get through the photos and descriptions of cars. So that means in an hour, they should be able to do this. And so, okay, we got each person can handle this many cars a day. So if we're surpassing that, then we need to hire somebody for that next round. But then the people I hired, created workbooks, they documented everything that they're doing. So then when it came to the next person, the training wasn't as long. One of the books, and I didn't read it prior to starting my company, but it validated everything I was doing, was E-Myth Revisited. I don't know if you've ever read, and it's talking about franchise prototypes versus, and why a lot of small businesses fail, but franchises don't, is, structuring your company as a process. So now when I hire somebody, we do like going back to the snowball. At first, I'm scrambling, trying to train them, and then the next person I'm scrambling, trying to train it. I'm trying to put the workbook together and how it works, but now it kind of snowballed to the fact that now we've got people in place to do it. And again, it was just to the benefit that, we had a product that, obviously we could grow with,
Right. But I think that I want, again, I always joke, little rest stops, pull over for a second, because what you just said is really important. I worked at a company previously, and that's what I did. I systematized the office I was running in such a way that it could be replicated. It was all systematized. And so then they said, well, can you go open another one and open another one? It's very much along what you're saying, this franchise model. I remember taking my sons. We were driving up to Massachusetts to visit friends, and we stopped at a rest stop on the turnpike, and one of them wanted a sandwich at Dunkin' Donuts. So while they're online getting their food, I'm over at a table, and I see a Dunkin' Donuts manager's manual. So of course I stick my nose, I open it up, it's a binder. Finally, someone comes over and they said, oh, I shouldn't have left this there. But I asked them the question. I said, I see everything's checklists. He goes, everything in our company is a checklist. I have to fill out my checklist every day I'm here. My regional rep comes in, and if I work 25 days this month and I have 22 checklists, that's not a good thing. And to your point is, when you have it systematized or you have it documented, you also can hire people that want to learn because you've documented the training for them, versus it's a mysterious skill that only a few people have, or everybody has to be trained by Jasen or else it's not going to work. You're never going to scale that way.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the fears I had was, I had no problem delegating it, but the more and more I delegated, the harder part now where I get right now, and some people might be in this position, the more and more I delegate it, I'd sometimes show up at the office going, okay, what do I got to do now? And I, start feeling bad. And I'm like, but then again, I get to the confidence, and I tell the team, hey, I'm not telling you to do this so I don't have to do anything. I'm telling you to do this because if I die in a car crash tomorrow, we still have a company that's functioning. So the more I can distance myself from the operations itself, the better the company is. So, take this responsibility and run with it, make it yours. And I'll allow you to with my input, but the more and more, if I can leave for a month or two and nothing gets affected, then I know we're done something right. Right. But that's the hard part with a lot of people, is one, delegating and letting it go, those things. And that's so even at the beginning, it's hard. A lot of people, if they can't delegate or let that stuff go.
Well, to your point on that, I mean, that is really a hard thing. And for those of you listening, you're used to doing things. I remember when I went from being in the field as a regional manager to a corporate office, I went through withdrawals because I didn't have all that activity to do. And it took me a while to figure out what I needed to do to have that impact. So all of a sudden in what I'm hearing from you is, you have your employees. Let's say I'm overseeing these 10 people. Well, now all of a sudden I have 20 people. I can't oversee 20 people, but now I put people in place. My team now becomes these 4 people, and I work through them to get there. And it's an interesting struggle to understand that as you move up, you may not be doing as many things, but the impact that your actions have on the company are more important, or they're more necessary, because Tracy Myers used to always say, is it a $10 an hour job or $100 an hour job or $1,000 an hour job? You, as you move up, should be focusing on the $1,000 an hour jobs. Yeah. Hire for the 10, coach, develop them. But to your point, you're never going to scale if you feel that the only way this is successful is if I'm here every hour of every day doing everything.
Yeah. And we visited on it about, if I can do it, then my employees can do it, but there is some borderline to that. And that's some of the stuff that I'm experiencing too, as the owner of the company is, when I first started out, and again, I left on a faith-based, okay, there's a purpose for me to do this, and I'll use it as a tool to be able to be home more for my wife, my kids, and things like that. It was just utilizing it as a tool, but I knew there was a possibility of the company. That's why I didn't name it Jasen Rice and Associates or anything like that. I knew it there. I needed to. So anyways, but it was me from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. sometimes, other than dinner and putting the kids to bed, go back downstairs, do the work. And so even in the first year or so, it was such a struggle. My wife, even, you need to go back. This isn't working out and things, all those struggles. And I grinded to, make it work. And she would even say, hey, this is even worse than when you were working at, the company. You're busier now than you were then. I said, I know, but, just give me patience. It's going to work out and have faith, so one, I had support from her, but again, going to the point now, and it's been probably 5 years. It's been more of a 8 to 5 type of job. And then I feel guilty that I'm not working. I even, I hired a new VP of marketing. I got a CEO now. And they're like, dude, no, go. I mean, you've earned this to be able to have the freedoms to do that. And I'm like, yeah, but I look bad. I'm, if I'm coming in 10 minutes late or 20 minutes, I want to be there by 9, but I get there at 9:30 because I did something with my kids. I feel bad and I feel like I should be grinding again like I did. But again, there's that balance, and I don't want them to show up late because, hey, you're supposed to be here, but then I'm doing it. That's the fine line that I'm just struggling with right now.
No, but you're right. But that is a struggle. I struggle with it too. I feel but my wife said to me, when I went through that same thing and started this as my own versus working for someone else, she said, yes, you could have stayed there and you would have been successful. She says, but you're using your brain more in these first 6 months of this new venture than the last 5 years. And yes, you're working longer, but it doesn't seem like work to you. And, having that buy-in, I just interviewed George Nene from Generations Digital about starting his company. He said the same thing. He had a deadline he and his wife agreed to and said, if by this time, it's not moving, it's not gaining some momentum, then I will go back and get a job. But it is that leap of faith, but you are working more, but allowing yourself, it's not so much people are, in my mind, looking at saying, oh, Jason's here 10 minutes late, he's bad. It's what are you doing when you're there? And if you're involved with your people and pouring into your people and being part of the people and really work, nobody's watching the clock. They just know. And also they know that when you're not here, you're thinking about it. It's not like you're shutting it off. You're at home thinking and strategizing on the weekend, taking notes, or you're at a conference doing different things. So they don't see all of that. They're just happy to work in an environment where you are now leading from a position of, we have growth, we have structure, we all work hard. And more importantly, we're creating a long-standing business that we all can be here for a long time. Again, if we all continue to do our jobs. So let's go back then, because you mentioned it twice, and I want to hear about this. You worked for vAuto, stable company. What was the impetus to say, I want to go out besides, I know you said you wanted to be home more, but why this tool, this product? Why not something different? How did this software, idea come into play?
Well, the software, again, we are eight-year anniversary here in September. The software really only came, thank you. Software just came out February last year from COVID. So the 6 years prior to that, but I retailed for 8 years from 97 to 05. I was with vAuto, one of the first employees in 05 to 2013. I worked there and I traveled all over the country dealing with dealers and managers. And I just seen them struggle. The big dealer groups had, used car directors and assistants, and then the small guy, the regular guy handling 100 used cars were just, I would try to tell them, hey, you need to track this, you need to be doing your virtual lot walk, you need to do this, and they just, yeah, I know, and they just didn't have the time. So I knew that I could help them do that. Let me do this work, and then we'll meet each week. So actually, I tried to quit 2 years prior to when I actually did quit, and back then it was out of pride and ego. I literally always had this little bit of an entrepreneur itch. Matter of fact, I don't know if you know Automotive and John Haniotis, if you remember him at all as a VP there. But when I was selling cars, I did a lot of internet sales. I was writing Dealer Magazine. I was speaking at conferences and internet sales. I got to know Automotive did white paper study. I got to know the VP real well. And I wanted to go out and be an internet consultant back then. So I even had the itch back then, but that was when the Corey Mosleys, the David Kanes and Sean Bradleys and stuff were doing it. And I'm like, I can do what they're doing, but I had no experience on the road, had no experience being a vendor. And Hani Otis said, hold on, let me introduce you to Dale. That's how I ended up at vAuto. And so anyways, I've had this itch. And so 2 years prior to that, it was out of pride and ego. Ooh, I can start my own company. I can make as much as I'm making here, and I can do this and do that. And they kind of talked me out. We just got bought by Auto Trader. They said, hey, we know you need more challenges. You've been doing this for a while. They gave me some workshops, some things to do. Plus there'll be promotions down the road. Don't guarantee it, but if you stick around, you've been here the longest. And so I worked really hard for 2 years, and I earned that promotion. In the meantime, though, I had my son, who was 8 at the time when I started with vAuto, and I was traveling 3 or 4 days a week. So I got the promotion, I got the title, the money that I thought I wanted. But now my 8-year-old son's 16. He's playing lacrosse. My daughter's going to middle school. So my son became a mama's boy, and not a bad thing. I'm just saying I wasn't around as much. And my daughter, I'm like, oh shoot, my daughter, I actually had 2 at the infant at the time. She's starting middle school. I don't want her to, looking at boys because dad's not around. And so it was just a faith walk that I had over time, and just signs. I mean, just sign after sign that, that idea you had, step away, you need more time, and use that as a tool. Okay. And so that's how, and so it just happened the right time. It happened the right way. They're scary stories that I could tell you that to me, it gives me goosebumps when I tell them on how it all lined up. Right. But it was more just to be able to use this as a tool to be able to be home more productive. But I just seen a big need. And again, there was. And so we tracked and trended data. We entered in Google Sheets. I did it manually. I looked at photo restrictions. I met with them every week because I didn't want to be a consultant, because that meant I have to find 5 new dealers or whatever a month, hit the road, go in-house, train. It didn't accomplish anything I wanted to do. Plus, I knew, going back to process, I ran internet departments. It's all process driven. I can show them the process, and they might do it for a month or 2, but if they're not dedicated or somebody's not making it accountable, it'll fade away in a few months. Dealers install a dozen processes a year, and 1 or 2 stick around because that's the one everybody's paying attention to.
Right.
So I didn't want to just keep that circle. And I knew, okay, I'm going to help them install a process, track and trend things, and then meet with them every week to be that accountability partner, second set of eyes, their used car director that the big guys have that they don't have, because they're stuck. Do I hire an assistant? Right. The dealers, but I don't, who do I hire? How do I train them? And they're not big enough to have a used car director. So I knew there was a niche out there because of those 8 years grinding through dealers across the country. And, for 6 years, we just did it in Google Sheets once a week. We downloaded manual data once a week, and we trend and we meet with them. And then, so our software is only, I guess, a year and a half old now. Right. And now it's daily and it's weekly. It's something they can use. And now it's a different company now in a way, because now, we're going to have tech issues. We're going to have login issues. We're going to have feed issues. We're going to have all that kind of stuff. So I've got to, but having 8 years at vAuto, I knew those things. So I've already talking about hiring and stuff. I positioned, I went and spent a ton of money on a phone system, even though we didn't get any tech calls, but I'm like, hey, eventually we're going to get people saying my login doesn't work. Hey, what's wrong with this chart? And I said, let's install all this now. Let's handle those calls. So even though we might get 1 a week or 1 a month, at least a year or 2 now, when we're getting 10 a week or 10 a day, we already know how to handle it. And again, we're staffed, and we just making sure everybody's set up that way.
See, what I like about that, and it's, Well, there's two sides to that story. Is there's a lot of people who think, to your point, is I'm really good, pride, ego. I'm look how successful I am in this company. And then it seems very easy to say, well, I'm going to go out and start my own company because I have a couple people who said, sure, I'll hire you. And the danger is exactly what you had said. Once you get out there, you might have those 3 or 4 people who are really interested in you right now. But even as a consultant, maybe you're there for 3 months, 5 months, whatever it is. Eventually, part of your business model is going to find the next round of customers for yourself. So now it's not just servicing the people I have here, it's I have to go sell more. And to your point, it's one of the hardest things when you're going in as a consultant is this idea of, especially about process, like you were saying, internet. You could put a new person in place and they're going to take out the process. They're going to go to a new a conference and listen to speaker A. Oh, that's great. And we're constantly changing things and they're not really working on implementing and developing the process, developing their people to really see if this process really works or not. It's very emotional. It's very fast. It's a lot of things moving. To your point, unless somebody owns it and is that champion in the dealership or any business that says this is going to work, it's very hard to move the needle. It'll work when you're there and then it's going to fade away. So I like that. So when you first transition then to move, you start your business and you're saying 7 a.m. till 2 a.m., basically head down, but at least you're at home or somewhere close by.
Yeah.
How was that transition to be feeling more a part of the family or close to the family, but yet the demands have tripled on your time? Physically you were there, but tripled. How did that balance? How did that sort of work its way out? Because I have some people who say exactly that. Yeah, I'm home, but I'm not really here.
Yeah. I had to benefit because even when I was at vAuto, I worked from home other than when I was on the road. So I got 8 years of discipline on how to be productive at home. The hardest part, you're laughing, when I was actually on my own at that point in time and just starting and had as many accounts, my wife would be like, hey, can you watch the kids? I got to run to the store. I'm like, babe, you got to act like I'm not here, and this is my job now. No, I can't. Because if I was down the road, because I started out of the basement of their house. So it was just, getting used to that transition and that freedom. But again, I felt like I go a lot, you call it instincts or faith or whatever. I always, if something got planted in my head somehow, either take it for its word and you go, yeah, that's the right road, or you challenge it and ignore it. And there's so many things that just, sometimes I ignore it and down the little voice in my head saying, do this or do that. There is this, sometimes I ignore it and then it gets validated later that I knew I was on the right path. And I just knew, as much as we struggled trying to grasp it, again, like I said, the first year was the trickiest. And it wasn't that the business wasn't there. What I learned was payables. At that time I had like $18,000 in receivables that were like a month past due, and my wife's, you got to go get the money. And I know, but what do you want me to do? Go get in a plane and fly to Indiana and say, hey, give me my check? I'm like, we've called, we emailed, the money's coming, so we missed mortgage payments and things like that. And, you look back and those are the things that really, actually, those are the times you remember and enjoy. And again, if it wasn't those seeds being planted in me, giving me the confidence, and having my wife, again, supporting me through all that, allowing me to have her having faith into me, allowing me to say, hey, babe, no, it's just working out. Just, give patience. But again, we've been together since 95, 26 years, she's car business, 21 years. So she's been through it all with me when retail hours aren't easy, traveling. So I thought traveling wouldn't be as bad because I was gone, early in the morning and late at night for the kids. So, having that support, through the years. And like I said, and I would tell you this, if I would have quit 2 years ago, before with my pride and ego,
right
before I got the promotion, My pride in here again, the first year we kind of struggled, and it wasn't the growth. It was just, understanding business and receivables, and you're not going to get paid on time, and it's going to throw. So I didn't have a huge safety net and stuff. So to do this. And, so if I would have quit the first time before I got the promotion, I would have second guessed everything. My wife's telling me, hey, this ain't working out. You need to go back. I look at the person that got the promotion that I'd be like, man, I was way better than him. I should have got that promotion. Maybe my wife's right. Maybe I should go back. Maybe this ain't working out. And, it would have been totally bad timing. But again, just those nudges that I got and listened to and just had faith in that we're on the right path really got me through all that stuff.
Well, I think, and I think a lot of people discount that voice in your head, whatever you're going to call it, right? You can call it faith. You can say God's talking to me. It could be my instinct, whatever you want to say. But there's reasons why things are put in front of you for you to ask the question, which way to go. And to your point is, something kept you there, whether it was your brain saying, you know what, no, I want that promotion. That's more important to me than leaving right now. And so that became the challenge. And then going off on your own. And you're right, the struggles, the very first year of any business is very stressful because you don't know, unless you've done it before. And, that's when I was talking to a few of the other guests who have gone out. Everyone said, I wish I had asked more questions of other people before I did it. Not that it would have stopped me. It would have maybe saved me a little, a few headaches. To your point is understanding receivables, or how should I bill, or should it be on a credit card, or should I get upfront payment? All of those, just to be able to make it a little, give yourself a plan, some framework that you can execute on and feel comfortable with. So let's pivot a little bit. Now you have a company, you've moved up now, and you, as you said, you have 20 something employees. You mentioned earlier about processes in any business, but because you've been in dealerships, you know them very, very well. But I've been in multiple industries and they all have that same problem. So if you were talking to a group of general managers, leaders of that company, of their companies, what would you say is their biggest hurdle for not giving enough time to processes, or not, why are they so disjointed or jump from one things to another? What would your advice be to double down, like you were saying, have faith in the process and go through this versus changing? What would you say to them?
I guess when we worked internet leads, the hard part with car dealers, let's say, for example, but this is in an industry, a lot of times we were so much focused on the short game, right? Again, going back to running internet departments, the short game is the customer that actually picked up the phone and called an email and willing to show up. Those are the ones I worked. I didn't follow up long-term. So, with my company, I feel like, especially 8 years in, I've really done a slow job, slow, methodical. But, one of our core values at the company is be a chess player. And chess players look, 5 moves forward, up to 12 if they're really good. So chess players are more strategic and they know where they're heading. And that's all process. Okay. I mean, think of a chess player. Okay, I'm going to move this pawn here and I'm going to move the rook. I mean, they're going to, and so that's all process, and they know they got to follow those steps to get to where they want to be. So I've always had this vision of where we want it to be, but I was patient with it and just going, okay, chip away here. And it goes back to internet and any process where the low hanging fruit's always going to be there. Mm-hmm. It's the 40, 50, 60, 70 day old customer that, that you're not following up with, that has the option to go wherever they want to go. So with the business, it was knowing where our vision was and then working backwards. I train that with car dealers right now with pricing cars. Hey, I know this car will leave here at this price, but I don't want to price it there. But I want to go on by day 30. So, okay, if you want it on by day 30, you can get to this price. So then back yourself up to where you should start price wise now. So you know where to chop. So, be that chess player. Think of 5 moves ahead. Where do you want to be a year, 2 years from now? And then work your way backwards. And to figure out what steps you got to take. And then if you're committed to that, then, I mean, that's the only way you can That's the only way you can do it.
But how do you do, because here's, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here, because someone's gonna say, well, there's a million reasons why that can't happen, right? You can say all these influences, but that's not, it's easier said than done, because as you were saying, all of these influences coming at you, doubts, second guesses. So I could look at that and say, here's where I want to be in a year, but a year seems very long. How do you, for you then, how do you say, okay, a year from now, this is where we want the company to be? Are you breaking it backwards into here's monthly, weekly, daily tasks to get there so that you can say, I'm on the path? Or is it, and then how do you shield yourself from all the naysayers, the doubters in your own brain, other people? Walk me through your process.
Yeah, not a daily process, but let's say, for example, the last couple halves a year. So I'll call it, a matter of fact, I just remember I'm going to go back and revisit what I called for this round was Project 621. So Project 621 was the first 6 months of 2001 or 21. So Project 621 is we started in January and saying, okay, in 6 months, this is what we want to accomplish. And we funneled it down. Okay. We got all this going on, buy a booth for the conferences, start, writing the book. You need to, we need to get phones. We need to get this. And then, by here, the conferences are happening. When we need to start hiring a sales team. And then, okay, by here, I want the software to look like this. And then by June, here's how everything should look. All right. So we just follow that path and we go, and throughout the months we visit out, okay, check those off. And these 2 months, we probably get this done. These months, we're going to be working on this. That's down here, up right here. And hopefully by it gets to, May, it's done. And then by June, we're, so, I chunk it up like that. So we have a, project. Well, this is going to be 621, but we chunk those up and so
you're not worried, you're not down so granular to say this is what we have to do every day, but you're taking these bigger chunks to say, here are projects we're working on, delegate out, and you're checking in with them. Okay. But then how, if things are not going well, or the naysayers, like you said, or doubts, or we're not moving as fast as I can, how do you, is it just, you're just committed to the vision and you trust yourself and you trust your team that we'll get here? How do you fight off those naysayers, or you hear other people commenting about your success or whatever? How do you fight? Because I know there's people listening here who are going to say, yeah, but I'm leading a team and I got everybody, poking at me, or I'm trying to run my business and now I'm worried about this competitor out there or that there, or I didn't get this deal, they got that deal. Maybe I'm not as good as they think. How do you fight through the doubts?
Kind of, we talked about this at that last conference. I say the vision, the core values, I think, is real important. I get excited, what's weird is like all my employees, and I've learned to appreciate it, will tell me, or I get done talking about this new thing that we're working on. They're like, man, what I love is your passion. I just see you light up when you talk about it. So, again, if we're running down this path and it's not falling in place, it's just sitting down and letting them understand, where that vision is and where that passion is, and let them be involved. Because again, my IT guys, I don't understand development. So I can't create processes to make them responsive. I can create deadlines and say, here, this is my vision. Here's what I'd like to see. Can we get it done in a week or two? Yeah. Okay. So but I try to get them excited about that vision and where it would get us. Man, if we get this done, you don't understand. This is going to be huge because no one's doing it. And, so I think just keeping them in tuned with the vision and excitement about where you're heading and what you're doing, which again comes down and also core values. Because if people are not part of that vision, one, you got to get them buying on a vision. But if they're not part of it, if they don't see, you got to figure out, are you part of our core values? Are you following these things? Because if not, that's what's going to drive us there. And again, it goes back to accountability. If they're not following those core values, because I think again, we're at the conference, we're talking about, how do you know you got the right team, or when do you fire them? How do you get them motivated? You got to make them accountable and saying, hey, our core values is put dealers first. What we're just talking about or what we're doing, is that accomplishing that? No. Okay. So we got to refocus. And if you continue to have that problem, then maybe we got the wrong person. But if they understand your vision and know what to do, and I think then it just becomes, a little bit natural.
One of the best things that we did, because as we were growing, we would come back, Brian, my brother Brian and I, we would come back from a conference or a group meeting, and we would just say, man, how we're doing such a great thing, and people really love us and everything like that. And we're out in the problem was the employees only saw that little building that we were in, right? And so they didn't understand it. But by taking some of the key employees or up and coming employees to those conferences, all of a sudden they listen to our clients or people coming up and shaking hands or saying, hey, Glenn, how are you, Glenn? I remember taking a few people to a conference and they laughed because we were right at a big conference and we were right by the door. So everybody came by. Everybody was saying hello and they laughed. They said, what are you, the mayor? Everybody knows you. But they came back and reinforced and told other people, no, you don't understand. When they say that people know them or respect them, this is really happening. So again, for you, even for your team, taking a couple of those key people, especially people like a developer who may not understand it and see it, but if they're sitting in the booth or they meet people and all of a sudden they hear people talk about the technology and talk about the company in ways, not you saying how great it is. It's like that testimonial. They all of a sudden their head goes, wow, what I'm really doing does have an impact. So I think that's also really important to get them out in front to see the values, see the results of all the work. It's really necessary.
And it's funny you say that, because you go back to having fear of hiring somebody and is the money there kind of stuff is for last couple of years, my IT guy, my developers, I'm like, man, I need to get you guys to NADA so you can see the grand scale of this business, maybe even talk to other vendors and what they're doing in development and stuff and see the big, but I was always fearful because, as you know, and it was just even going into next year, I think we're going to try to do that. But the expense on the booth, I mean, shoot, they'll charge you $50 a day for a trash can, you know, so the expense of the booth and travel and hotels. And I'm going, man, do I have the money to do that, to spend that extra grand? But to your point, you know, and everything that I try, going back to the beginning, I want to invest in my people to where they have luxury, you know, they feel like the working for us is a luxury, not a responsibility. And so taking them the money, if I had cost me $3 or $4 grand extra to bring one of those guys there, I think, like to your point, what they bring back to the company, it'll come back tenfold, right? You know, their excitement, their energy toward it. So it's worth the investment. But I get fearful because I'm like, man, I'm already going to drop this much money. Do I have another $4 grand to bring him along?
I felt the same way, but I had someone, you know, push back on me, and they said the problem with that thinking is you're looking at it as it all has to be paid this month. Right? Like today. And sometimes it does, but they would say, well, if you were going to take your family and you wanted to go on a vacation and you really wanted, so you wanted to take your 5 children and your wife and you're going away on vacation, but it's a little tight right now. What do? You put it on the credit card and you pay it off over time because they love that. So, you know, we had a line of credit and, you know, we had, you know, our controller accounts person hated using it because they felt bad. And I was like, no, put the big expense. Put the big booth and we'll pay it off over time because I need that. And so to what you had just said, we brought a marketing person one time and their heads exploded because they got a chance to walk around and see everybody else's marketing and what they were doing. And then same thing, we had some of our salespeople, but also we had some of our account managers who got a chance to see their clients, meet them face to face, or listen to what dealers were concerned about, or listen to what other vendors were doing. It was so important to the growth of our company, but more importantly, retention of key people, because they appreciated the fact that, one, you invested in them and took them, which is a responsibility for them, that you were proud to bring them and you believed that they could represent your company well, as well as taking them out to dinner, or just saying, no, I have a meeting, but you can go out to dinner and put it on the company. Like those little things, you're right. On a P&L this month, your brain goes, but it's that investment in your people, especially the pride that they're going to feel that you felt that they are worth showing off, like you're proud of them.
Yep. And that's where we get into just, you know, our team page and videos and testimonies. One of the things I tell dealerships all the time is, you don't even have a staff page and you're worried about turnover and stuff, but maybe if you actually put them on your website, had a bio and some pictures and stuff, you're investing in them and showing them off, and yeah, being able to be proud of your employees, like I said, and again, you're just kind of validating the fact that, do that. You don't have to bring the whole team, but bring people here and there.
We would rotate. So if we were going out to conferences or we host our own conferences, we would have certain, this time these 5 people will come help run the conference. They didn't care. They're, wow, I'm over here. Next time these 5, or I'm going to bring you here, or come with me. We're going to go see one of our clients, bring the account manager or bring the team with you. All of that is an investment where it's easy to discount it and say I can't really pencil the ROI, but it's there if you really start looking at it. And a lot of times in the beginning of businesses, you don't have that ability because you are just trying to get, bootstrapping it and, really watching every expense. But my advice, and I'm glad you connect in that as well, is it grows your company when you invest in your people, because then you don't have to do everything. You can get out of the way, and they're going to see everything, and their experiences are different. If I send somebody to a different conference, sometimes my team will say, hey, can we go to this marketing conference? I say, great. But then you come back and you present to the team.
That's a good idea.
Right. Yeah. Right. What did you learn? What was good? What was not good? What should we be doing? So at least we're getting something out of it versus, hey, I send someone there and I think dealerships worry about sending people to conferences for that reason. They think, well, I'm just sending them. They're just going to hang out and they're going to have fun.
Play golf.
And that's fine. But make sure that you say, well, no, you're going to look at these 3 things. I want you to come back and report on that to us. So as we wrap up, I have a question for you about balancing, like you were talking before, that work-life balance. So now you said I have some employees internally. Now there's some maybe remote or whatever. If I'm building, I'm someone who's asking you, right? So I'm a new business owner and I'm trying to come up with that flexibility. How has your structure of what you expect in terms of time and commitment from your team, how has that evolved? So that way, if somebody said, like, let me phrase it this way, what you're doing right now, how you do that, would you have done it? Do you look back and say, I wish I started this sooner? And if so, what was it?
Again, going back to that point, if it happened when I wanted it to happen, it would have been the bad timing. Okay. Like I said, if I did it out of when I wanted to do it, it wouldn't have happened. And I feel like I got it, part of it is, again, I'm praying or hoping that it's worked out because I've just stayed committed to what the purpose was. One, help dealers, obviously, and stuff. But again, on my own personal thing, was, again, I had to get it to grow a bit to be able to do what I felt my purpose was to do it. Again, use it as a tool to be able to give back and do things, not just my family, but church and stuff. And I give an example, and it might be a little winded story, but again, I can talk about, whatever. It could be a voice in your head, your conscious, God speaking to you. But I want to tell you a story I haven't shared, and it hit me this morning, and I don't know why. So maybe this is why. But I remember when the first year, and it was the struggle, and questioning is this the right thing? Is it moving the right way? Is it? And I'm working more than I should. So my son's probably 14, 15. I think he's in high school at this time, and and I had him mowing lawns, and I told him, here's the deal: I got a truck. We got the mower. We posted some stuff on Craigslist. It's like temporary, or we let us know mow. It's like, let us know if you just need us, come us. We didn't want to commit to a certain yard every weekend, every day. It's just odd jobs. And so we had this old lady call us up and said, hey, it was Mother's Day weekend, and they're going to have a party there and or an event there at the house. but the mower broke after they cut the front. They couldn't get them back done and wonder if we can come mow. And so that was a Friday and Mother's Day on Sunday. So I said, yeah. And so I talked to the lady. That Saturday, the weirdest thing happened. I was taking a shower and something planted a seed in my head to say, bring this lady flowers. It was for Mother's Day, and be nice, because you knew she was having Mother's Day. It was an old lady and stuff. So I ignored that feeling. I said, no, that's kind of weird. I can't show up there. I even told my wife. I mean, it was just so weird. I even told my wife, I'm like, I'll feel weird doing that. So we get there and the lady comes out, and again, sweet as can be. And she's, telling us what needs to be done. So we start mowing, and it's probably a couple hour job. And so I have my son mowing, I'm weed eating and stuff. And she comes back out trying to offer us cookies and stuff. My hands are dirty. So she's this sweet. She's like, well, I'll leave it on the patio here for you. We get to about almost 3/4 of the way done. And she come out to me and she goes, I am so glad you guys are here. It's so helpful. And she said, you guys remind me of my son and my grandson. She said, she said, you guys are about the same age and everything. She said, my son passed away, and forgive me, I can't remember why he passed away. She said, but it was so devastating on my grandson, she goes, by the way, how old's your son? I said, well, he's 15. What high school? Well, he goes to this high school. Wow, he might know of my grandson. I think he went to the same high school. And she said, when my son died, it was so hard on my grandson that he committed suicide. And she goes, it's just a blessing. You guys remind me of them. And it's so grateful you're here. And I turned around, I said, no, ma'am, what I realized doing this and your story, I said, I think you're more here for us than we are here for you. And I said, I appreciate the opportunity to do this for you and stuff. After she told me that story, I think I might even told my son on the way there about the flower thing. So we get done mowing the lawn. We get in the truck. I look at him. I said, we're going to the store. He goes, why? He goes, are we buying her? I said, we're buying her flowers. So we went to the grocery store. I had him get a batch and I got a batch, and we went back to the house and we presented her the flowers. It's like, again, if it was her son, he'd be probably bringing his mom flowers for Mother's Day.
Yep.
And so that story, like I said, it just hit me going, this is why I'm doing this. I probably wouldn't have been able to did it if I was traveling all the time. I was doing this to be able to have this time with my kids, to appreciate that this lady, and it was just, again, I bring it up to the fact that it was a struggle for me at running this business. Am I doing the right things? But I just knew I was doing it with a purpose. So even though, that's 6-7 years ago, I carry that with me now, right? Is everything I'm doing either for my employees. I'm trying to make their workload lighter, try to, you always want to hire to your weakness, right? And that was the first person I hired within 3 months. It was not a person on my clock, but it was a outside to do HR or my payroll and stuff, like accountant. So that was just a small fee. I paid them to do all that stuff because that's my weakness. But also as a company, you got to understand you should also hire to your company's weakness too. So when you going back to hiring, should I do this? Am I on the right path? What's, again, why did you do this? What's the purpose? What are you trying to accomplish? Not just for you, but your employees and your clients, my dealers. So again, that's what's kind of drove me, little things like that. And I get those nudges every once in a while on what's the right and wrong thing to do. And if you just keep doing that, I think the rest will fall in place.
Oh man, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's a wonderful story. And I think that we have many times in our lives where that voice tells us to do something and we ignore it. And then you go back, look, and you say, ooh, should have listened, or I should have done that. So that was great. So, well, great. So let's, as we wind down here, I usually ask just what I call rapid fire questions, just about nothing in general, just completely odd questions, because I like to hear what motivates you and things like that. So don't overthink them. Let me just throw these out. Yeah. First thing that pops to your mind. So what is you look like a very healthy person, right? Athletic, in shape. What's your favorite cheat meal?
Oh, I'm really not a food person. I guess at night, I'll eat popcorn, movie theater type salted up popcorn. So 10
Okay.
o'clock at night, watching a movie, having a beer. I'm like, I need some snack. I'll usually grab that popcorn.
Okay. What was your favorite cartoon as a kid?
Mm, I mean, you get the Tom and Jerry's, the Jetsons, the Flintstones, the traditional ones. You know what? I remember He-Man as a elementary kid, Boy Scouts, running the Boy Scouts meeting after some kid's house and making sure we got on time to watch He-Man. So
There you go. That's
yeah,
great. Um, is there a movie or a show? Let's go movie. A movie that when you run across it on TV, you always stop and watch some of
probably something like Tommy Boy. That always makes me laugh. No, how many
it.
times I watch that.
What's a book or something you're listening to that's inspiring you that you would want others to read or listen to as well?
Going back to E-Myth, Revisited. The Audible on that is phenomenal. It just validated the path I was on. I listened to that probably 3 to 5 times over the last 8 years, just to again keep that process driven and run it like a franchise and not just a company.
Love that. Is there a motto or a theme or something that you say, this is my motto, this is my mantra for living my life?
One of the things I teach my kids, I'd say "hu hai," I guess kind of like the military "ooh ah, or the Marines, however they chant. But "hu hai" is the acronym. It stands for HUHI, head up. Always keep your head up, no matter what you're going through. If you can just keep your head up and then honor and integrity, because you can lose everything in your life. You can lose your job, you can lose your spouse, your parents, and whatever. But if no one could take your honor and integrity. They can challenge it. They could tell you, but as long as you know and you've done it, you just keep your head up and honor integrity. And so, hu hai.
There you go. Love that. Okay. I have two more. One is, if I took your family, close friends, your tight circle who knows you, what's the one word they would use to describe you?
I don't know. I don't know what the word is. I would say maybe ADD. Like my mind's always all over the place, and I take that as my benefit. Like you said, I'll be at 10 o'clock at night. My mind's for work. So I guess unfocused because I'm like a squirrel and I take off. So,
all right. Last one. We've talked about a lot of different things here during this time. And as I said, the point of this whole show always is to help those who are leading, starting businesses, running teams, build some of those skills and think. And we've talked about a wide variety. If there was one thing that we've talked about, you've shared, that you would say, if they got this out of this conversation, I'm happy. What's that one thing you hope they take away with this?
Again, I guess I mean, that's on me. It's what's the purpose again? What's that purpose? Even if it's just your company, for me, it was more of a family thing and life thing. But even if it's what's the purpose of this company, and if it's just for money or something, obviously sometimes that don't work out. So there's got to be some big driven purpose behind it. And once you find that, and again, wrap everything else around it, because that gives the vision. Everybody as employees, once you can figure out that purpose and get everybody, that's easy for people to buy into and know that it works. So I think, again, find that purpose, think 5 moves back, work your way backwards, find that purpose, and just try to get there and move your way back.
Love that. So first off, I just want to thank you. This has been a phenomenal conversation. I appreciate you taking time to share with me and hence the audience out here. If people want to contact you, where, what platform are you out on, and where can they reach out to you? And then also we'll put in the Lotpop and all the stuff in the show notes, but where can they get a hold of you if they wanted to chat with you?
Do most of my activity at jrice@lotpop.com. But a lot of my activities, Facebook, LinkedIn. I have a YouTube channel where there's probably 250 videos on there for dealerships on tips and stuff. But it's Jasen. There is another Owen floating out there. I think it was one that was created a long time ago and I couldn't remember the password, or something happened. I had to change the name and they won't delete it. I keep trying to reach out to them and say, can you delete this account? And they won't do it. But so Jasen Rice, Facebook, LinkedIn mostly, and YouTube.
Great. So again, I want to thank you for that. So again, for all of you who have been listening all the way through, I hope you got a lot out of this. I appreciate the fact that you're here with us. Again, don't forget to subscribe. Also, make sure you share this out. There's a lot of people who could use some of the information that Jasen provided today. Don't forget to rate us and leave a comment. Love to hear what you think about it. As always, I appreciate your attention. It means the world to me. There's so many places you could be spending this time, and you chose to share it with Jasen and myself, and we both appreciate that. Like I say at the end of every episode, you're in charge, but Jasen just gave you a few more tools to help you become more successful, both personally and professionally. Thanks again, Jasen. Look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you on the next episode.